Okay, recording started. So hi everyone, it's JupyterLab February 21st call. Link to the agendas in the chat. I just kind of wanted to do this more in of a like self-host cafe kind of style. So we just start and stop the recording. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go through the agenda, I guess.
Looks like my open question is first then. This is more of an open question for the room, or if anybody knows who to point me at. Has anybody ever converted a VS Code extension into a JupyterLab extension and has guidance or docs or examples, etc.? I've done it the other way around, but I've never done VS Code to Jupyter. Somebody's asked me to convert their extension, and my experience is a little floundering this, and Google essentially only shows up the Jupyter VS Code extension whenever you search any of our keywords, because it's like their biggest product lately. So any feedback would be helpful. Does anybody?
Never done.
Nobody's done VS Code extensions before.
So there is some things you should be aware of if that is a notebook extension, like VS Code notebook extension. For example, that the security model is different. And that means that the outputs are way more isolated. So kind of in VS Code notebooks, implementation of Jupyter notebooks, each, like the unit of isolation is a cell rather than a notebook, which prevents certain things. For example, you cannot have nice pop-ups which occlude anything outside of your single cell. So it's kind of like an iframe. It is an iframe.
That's good to know. That would affect development.
Yeah, but in Notebook and in JupyterLab, the unit of isolation is the entire notebook. And there might be some differences, like most of the APIs, it will be rather simple to port, but this is like a fundamental change on how things can interact.
Good to know. Thank you. That's at least more helpful than nothing. So I'll keep trolling the Google and see if I can dig up some documents. Otherwise, I am in the wild, wild west. Thanks, guys. I think the next person on the bullet list is Mike.
I was going to ask you first.
Yeah.
Are VS Code extensions TypeScript?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I did not know that until I started work on this current project.
Cool. That's interesting.
They are pure TypeScript too. No Python, unlike our code.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
my starting point is I'm planning on copying over the TypeScript and tinkering with it, essentially, to start to see
Cool.
how much I can just plug and play the whole code base with a new like main file, essentially.
What does the extension do?
It's like a code autocomplete type thing.
Okay.
Not as simple as normal code autocomplete, but yeah.
Cool.
So depending on which kind of autocomplete it is, we actually have pretty similar APIs, especially for inline completer now, because it was kind of modeled after what the VS Code, rather, it's not modeled after what VS Code does, because that's proprietary, but it's modeled after LSP, and VS Code follows LSP. So yeah, if you have any questions, we might already know.
No,
the APIs are similar, except that in VS Code you have like entry points are often single functions, and in Jupyter, we kind of have these objects which are tokens, which have methods, and it's like more object-oriented in a sense.
Yeah, I remember. Wow. I remember back when JupyterLab LSP was still getting off the ground. So, yeah. Thank you.
And actually, I would be pretty interested to like read any thoughts if you ever get to writing down, I don't know, an issue or blog post with your experiences.
Yeah.
Interesting, like
my
just to know how much of a challenge it is.
My current team is very pro blog posts. So there is a higher than zero chance that I will be asked to turn my experience into a blog post.
Great to hear. Okay, so moving on to my points, it's not much. First, the blog post. Speaking of blog posts, JupyterLab 4.1 and Notebook 7.1 announcement is kind of mostly ready. If anyone would like to comment, please do that today, and I will send that off to the media strategy group for feedback and distribution. The blog post starts with a simple stats about how many pull requests there were, how many users contributed, and it's a lot. It's the second largest release that we had as like minor release, so excluding 3.1. As far as minor releases go, this is a big one, or kind of depending how you count pull requests, it's the largest minor release. Then there is a copy paste of our user-facing changelog, but trimmed a little bit with great help from Jason, who is not on the call, but I just wanted to acknowledge that he did a lot of copy editing and suggestions how to shorten that to reasonable length. And I don't know whether Medium still has limitations on the number of screenshots, but it might be that we will need to decide which ones to keep. And finally, at the end, there is a section with acknowledgements, generally listing new users who contributed and returning contributors. And it only includes 3.1.0, not 3.1 and 2, but I'm thinking that we should update that. And if you decide to go all over the blog post and spot many typos or contribute otherwise, feel free to add yourself to the tagline at the end. I think it will be published as Project Jupyter, but I think it's fair to acknowledge contributors to the blog post in general.
Thanks for doing the work to cut the release.
Okay, so since we already had JupyterLab 4.1, it's time to move to JupyterLab 4.2. And there is a release plan issue linked, and it's pinned on our GitHub repository. I would like to branch out 4.out today so that the main branch would become for tracking, will start tracking 4.2. I'm not quite sure on the process. I will probably look in historic issues, whether there is like anything to do additional, because I never done that before. But if you did and have hints, please let me know. I guess at some point we will want to bump the version, but I think it's not required immediately. So like we could just merge some pull requests and the version would be bumped during the first alpha release. Yeah, so that's it from me. There's a typo in the notes. Help. Yeah, please help reviewing pull requests. Last one request, because it's easy to generate many pull requests, but we also need reviewers. Thank you.
I think eventually I'm gonna have to have you start teaching me what's in the PR. Because a lot of these things I don't have, a lot of these areas of the code base I don't have any experience with. So I find it would be hard to review.
I mean, PRs come in all sizes and shapes and sizes, small ones, and these are, I guess, easier to review. But if you try to review a larger one, you will learn more.
That it? I guess that's it for the agenda, right?
Yeah, there is nothing, there is not anything else in agenda or is additional discussion.
I know, Mike, that I wasn't here in last week's meeting and you brought up some of the stuff related to the UI you and I have been having a conversation on one PR about the file browser focus. I don't know, is it worth bringing this to the room right now? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're ready to discuss that, I guess it's good to have more people engaged in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Your last comment when you were asking about like, I'm on board with that. So we could discuss that.
Yeah, trying to find a link to that discussion.
Yeah.
I have too many windows open today. So.
Here, I have it for you. I'll put it in the chat here. So I'll add this to the agenda as well.
Yeah, so basically it's something that I brought up, I think, a week or 2 weeks ago, that in the file browser, since JupyterLab 4.0, we have a focus indicator, which was introduced together with improving the file browser to enable more keyboard interactions and like more reasonable state presentation to the user, but it's pretty annoying. And I don't know, like 10 users complained, and even there was an issue opened about this today. It's already closed because the author realized that there is already another issue on it. And going from radical ideas like removing the outline altogether, which shows up on focus, through some other proposals. After a long conversation with Gabriel, who led the effort to previously improve file browser listing, I think we arrived at an action plan, which is to try to use focus visible so that the outline only shows when user interacts with the listing using the keyboard rather than using the mouse, but keep the ring focus indicator anyways, because when trying to do multi-selection, it is actually useful, and the alternative is to have a mixed indicator depending on whether you are trying to do multi-select or not. And in particular, discontinuous multi-select. So I don't know how many people on the call know that you can kind of use keyboard to create disjoint selections in the file browser. It's kind of more featureful than I expected. And finally, we can try to experiment with improving the presentation of the listing items independently. There are some mockups. So if you have thoughts on that, we would appreciate your voice. And I guess Gabriel might have something to say as well.
No, that pretty much covers it. I just wanted to, since we're thinking about making another shifting this a little bit in terms of UX and look and feel, just to get more eyes on it. That's all.
Looks like you've done good work.
Yeah, I appreciate Mike's putting forward these mocks. I think they're super useful to look at different alternatives to what we currently have, and which seems like what we have right now is annoying users. So we need to find some good. We need to find some new design that like meets the requirements but doesn't annoy users. A side note, it is kind of wild when you start like digging into this stuff and looking at file browsers across different OSs and realizing like sometimes you get into like states where you're like, did someone intend for this did somebody programming this file browser for Microsoft Windows intend for the, like, is this the intended behavior?
Yeah, I guess like they've been reworking that for a long time, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I also just think that like a lot of times, I think a lot of times is people assume that people are going to have like most of the testing that happens and the user testing is probably happening with people with mice, and pointers and things. But I mean, I know that Microsoft does do a lot of like does have like a big, you know, inclusive design initiatives, accessibility initiatives. So I'm sure that they're testing the stuff with keyboards, but it probably just doesn't get quite the same level of scrutiny.
Yeah, seeing a message in the chat offering to help testing. Absolutely, lots of testing is appreciated. On pull requests, we have a link to Binder, and that usually should build a working instance of JupyterLab, including the proposed changes. Unfortunately, sometimes it's 15 or 20 minutes, or you have to try again before that works. But
You said there's a binder link on the issue.
On it's on every pull request, and there is a pull request for that issue actually. It's just implementing one change, and that pull request is number 15802. Pasting the link in the chat. So if anyone wants to try out how it works and feels with when changing from focus to focus visible, they can give it a try. And please do leave feedback.
Yeah, I'll try to take a look at this today. All right, I think that's it. I think that's it for the agenda. I think Mike Oliveira hopped in. Hi, just saying hi.
Hi, friends. Nice to meet you.
You too.
I was looking for the command to install Jupyter notebook, and I figured out that you have this meeting. I just wanted to get into. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Are you writing extensions for Jupyter, or what do you do with it?
I'm a software developer. I've been working with Python. I'm gonna start to study a master, which I guess that I'm going to use Jupyter. But I really like the work that you do, and I just wanted to hear the most professionals that you are, and I really like it. Anything that I can help, feel free to tell me. Really, I'm going to start to get into these conversations more frequently. I really like it. I'm from Colombia. Hi.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, there's always stuff to do. I know even if you aren't necessarily developing something, testing is appreciated. And if you need help with things, people are here to help too. So
No,
yeah,
thank you. It's more. I'm going to start to read the documentation. Maybe I could do one PR in the future.
cool. Yeah, it's good to see you here.
Love.
All right, I think we can call it if nobody has anything else.
Let me stop the recording. Maybe someone would like to discuss something off the record, so to speak. So brace yourself for the sound.